supposed to do?
I mean,
okay,
engage with each other. No, I think first and foremost, welcome everyone, and thank you very much for coming back to Neo-Psych Services. This is the first, I guess, conversational space that I'm having with two very important guests of mine. On my right-hand side, we have Chizani Chibase, guest of mine, who's a high school friend of mine and was more than willing to come and partake in this conversation for today. Thank you very much, Chiz. And on my left-hand side, we have Oachen Khanye. Again, a good friend. But yeah, I think both of them have seen me in different spaces in my life, and I think they've gone through different spaces in their lives too. So we're coming together today to just kind of talk a little bit about this thing called psychology. I want us to just start off directly from there. I think what we have come to realize and come to experience as people, as Black South Africans, is that psychology has often had this bad rep where people often figure that it's for people who are crazy, people who are going through things behaviorally, so they are problematic in some capacity. And so we need to rein them in and get them fixed, which is often the case. It's necessary in those types of situations because at the end of the day we're living in a group, we're living in a world where we're living in and around other people. So if your behavior doesn't necessarily make it easy to live with other people, then we need to kind of see how we can assist you. But I think it's important that people continuously recognize that that's not the only factor that comes into why it is a person should be seeking psychological assistance or why they go for psychological assistance. Just insight, understanding life, understanding yourself, and moving beyond what it is you seem to think is your only option or the limitations of your life is something that I think psychology has taught me a little bit. And I would, as we continue this conversation, I hope that you guys will tell me how it's taught you guys, or what it's brought forward. So just start off by talking about is this idea that psychology, or rather the issues of the psyche, are easily able to fix. It's a behavior or a way that you present yourself is a choice, maybe even sometimes that you make. And when I think about it, I find that in this day and age, I don't know how you guys feel, but the buzzword nowadays is depression.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
You look at social media, you look at even just your friends, and people are like, oh my God, I'm so depressed. And yes, maybe they very much are, but sometimes I think that we might be linking depression with the wrong things and trying to kind of umbrella term it. And sometimes, the things that you are speaking to, notions of being anxious or just being heavily stressed out are associated to depression, it leads to it. But everyone is out here speaking of the notion of, I'm very depressed. And what I've come to realize and see, not only in practice but just in life, is that in some way, depression and just mental disorders are generational. And what I mean by that is, what I've come to see is that our parents in the past maybe couldn't name it.
Yes.
They didn't know what it looks like, number one, and in having maybe recognized what it looks like, how to then fix it or how to better treat it. It's either, hey, or let's go to the church and we'll pray about it. Yes, prayer does assist, I agree. It gives you the strength to move forward and to maybe kind of have that motivation to live beyond that particular day. But prayer by itself rather, is not the only outcome. So we think about how we are able to recognize generational poverty, where it's a thought process that this is where you start, this is where you end, there's no options beyond it. I've come to realize that I think generational mental disorders is a thing too. We don't necessarily speak to it directly as that because I think sometimes people are of the mind that poverty is a circumstantial thing, that if I have the right education, if I have the right opportunities, I can go and live beyond that. But when you think about mental disorders, it's not quite as easy as getting into the right circumstance in terms of financial security so that my family beyond me can live better. Mental disorders it's chronic. If we think about things such as bipolar, if we think about even depression, major depressive disorder, MDD is a thing. Even anxiety. When you think about people who have something as simple as OCD, that compulsion is not something that they choose, and it's not necessarily something they can easily get out of. And I call it a life sentence because we're not getting the knowledge that we need. And I'm hoping that today we can kind of speak to how do we work it out? Can we work it out? Is it worth working out? You know, is psychology valuable to us as 1990s kids? You know, the 21st century child, South African child at that. So I think I want to just start off by asking you guys, like, what is psychology? How did you guys come to understand psychology? Should I rather say? If you think about it at all.
Well, I think for me, I've always been aware of the field called psychology. And growing up, I always felt like perhaps I need to go see a psychologist because for many years I felt this emptiness, this sadness, and I couldn't understand why is it that I'm feeling this way. And as I got into my teenagers, it got worse. I went to university, it even got more aggravated there. And then I started working, I fell pregnant, and then now it just really culminated into a huge problem. And I always had people around me telling me, maybe you need to go see a psychologist or a psychiatrist. You need help. But for me, I think I needed a complete meltdown to actually seek that help. And that was my first experience of psychology. And at first I had my doubts. I didn't really understand why I should talk to this person.
How will they understand?
How is this person going to make me feel better? You know, if I can't pinpoint what's wrong with me, if I can't figure out what's wrong with me, how do I expect this person, who's not even a medical doctor at that, to diagnose me or even make me feel better? But I mean, I've been seeing a psychologist for 2 years now, or perhaps it's over 2 years, and I see the benefits. I really, really see the benefits. Because when you're a person who's in a depressive state, so I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder, and I was told that I'd probably be on medication for the rest of my life.
Which is daunting.
Scary. Yes. I think for over 6 months I was going to therapy every single week. Just to get out of the space that I was in. And basically through that, this person was able to look at it from a different perspective. Because you're so stuck into your way of thinking. You think, oh my word, it's the end of the world. You feel hopeless, you feel worthless, you feel like you don't deserve to be loved. I mean, these are real feelings that I felt at that time that I still even battle with today. But this person takes an objective view of what I'm saying, and they're able to structure it in such a way that I can actually challenge my thoughts, in a very logical way. And he also tells me that, it's okay to feel this way, You can't necessarily control what you're thinking, but you can control how you react to those thoughts.
Absolutely. Very, very true. I think when you're talking about just the reverting and the changing of behavior, how, in essence, culture is learned behavior. Don't just wake up one day and say, okay, so sit or says we must do. Someone came to you and said, no, your traditions speak to this and you must follow it A, B, and C. In the same way as when you are being taught how to walk, literally. Someone holds you by the hands and says one step forward, the other, like one leg at a time. Or you also watch it. And that's how you can also learn, through that vicarious kind of observing someone doing. And I think that's what life and growing up, and kind of speaks to what it is you had mentioned, how it's what you had come to learn. It's the experience of the life that you had come to kind of fall into, and you didn't realize or weren't privy to the fact that it can be changed if given the opportunity. So I want to ask you, do you think that had you not reached that rock bottom, things would have changed? Because it sounds as though it had to be that trigger place. Would it have changed anything?
No, I think if I hadn't gone through that, I honestly believe I probably wouldn't be alive today. It really got that bad. I think if I have to thank my sister. She's the one who like took me to the hospital and whatnot.
Shout out to Sunny! See you!
So if it wasn't for her, like I wouldn't be alive.
Life is a difficult thing.
Yeah.
And we all, in very different ways, try and make it seem like, no, I've got it together. Oh, baby.
No, girl.
No,
Not one person shall be one person on this earth who has everything together. It's nearly impossible.
Yeah.
It is not possible for you to have absolutely everything together. You might think you've got it all together, and then a spanner just gets thrown into the works, and you feel like everything just falls apart. And that's because you've got nothing together. It's just a matter of taking it a day at a time and trying to get through it all.
I think the question is how? The how. Because I think when we think about, let me first come to you first before we jump all across into other stuff. You know, how have you come to understand psychology?
So I came to understand psychology. Obviously, I grew up with things happening around me, and it was like, okay, I see this, all right, cool. Then when I got to varsity, I got into social work. So when I got into social work, then psychology came with social work, and then I started, obviously, you know, the two are intertwined, so you sort of work through them together. And then there was a personal challenge which occurred, and it didn't necessarily happen to me, but it happened to someone in my family, whereby that whole aspect of the psychologist being brought in, that thing came in, and I started to see it. I mean, I was studying it, but I don't know if you don't really understand it until it happens.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, so this is what they mean. And through that experience, and granted it wasn't my experience, but it was something that I saw, and it goes back to you're seeing and you're learning. So, you know, through that I came to understand the importance of psychology, the importance of whether you're going through something or not, sitting down with someone and speaking to them. The importance of having time for yourself, but also having time to have a chat with someone, be it a friend, be it a professional, being able to just let all those emotions out, because you know the notion of things bottling up and then eventually you reach breaking point. I never used to understand how I'd always get to breaking point, and then after studying, then it started to make sense of things built and built and built, and emotions built and built and built, and eventually you reach a point where it's just like, okay, your body, your mind, your emotions, your psychological state just can't take it anymore. And that's when you hit breaking.
I think and that's the sad thing, we sometimes find ourselves getting to a point where all things fall apart. And again, I don't think it's by choice, it's just by lack of knowledge. And sometimes I think to myself, you know, LO, thank you teachers, you get it. LO is important, but it doesn't prepare us for the things that life is really going to come into. And I think if they could just do Psychology 101 in the LO, especially maybe grade 11 or 12, recognize the simple things of what does depression look like? Lack of appetite, restlessness, scattered thoughts, just those simple things, so that when I go into this university space where a lot of people do break down in university, when we think about, I don't know about you guys, but in my years, I heard various stories about people getting, jumping off buildings. People coming more and more into the what are they called? Like the CCDUs? What are they called?
Yeah, CCDUs, like
the counseling spaces on varsity, varsity spaces, whether it be the CCDU or PsychCAD, depending on where it is you studied. More and more first years are coming in hordes, just being honest, this is happening. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to deal with it, because we always expect that life will teach us. And I think many of our parents and just our elders think that life will teach us because they have to be taught through life. And that is not a fair conversation to have, I think, because, and I think this is a conversation I was having with you before we started recording, the fact that we are in a place right now where we are more knowledgeable, and therefore with that knowledge you have the responsibility to speak on it and change it. Because just because your parents went through it and it toughened them up doesn't mean that in this society where we are right now, you need the same skills in order for you to be considered tough, to be considered streetwise, to be able to live a life that's completely different. The psyche that you need for apartheid times, real talk, was you had to be hard and feeling and move forward. We're not in that space anymore. A softness, a knowing and recognition of our rights and what it is our rights can do for us also plays not only on our physical abilities and our physical potential, but also mental. Because if your brain shuts down, as you said, then everything else ain't gonna come together.
And it's interesting that, you know, for you saw it with the first years, and I also saw it with the first years. But now in the job space that I'm in, I'm seeing it with first-time job goers.
Yes.
You know, people who are coming into the working space where 3 months into it, a person jumps off a building, a person's, you know, doing something happens because everybody was like, oh, they were fine. And when you speak to people around them, it's, I thought they were fine. And at the end of the day, the person's not fine. You need to check in, and it's that matter of it had been building, and yes, they got through high school, yes, they got through varsity, but then something at work, something as small as a disagreement with a colleague, a disagreement with a manager.
Yeah. Don't overlook it. Don't push it. Don't push it aside. And I think that's the point that you had made earlier, Chids, that your psychologist made you aware of the fact that it's okay to feel how you feel. Your feelings are always valid, whether the other person agrees with it or not.
Yes.
I'm not saying accept. I'm not saying understand, but you need to accept that it is what it is in that moment in time. And what is your relationship after having understood what psych is to you and your experience with it? What is your relationship now with psych? Has it changed in any way from when you started to recognize, okay, so this is a particular discipline or this is a particular space where people can kind of just talk to their feelings and express themselves, to where you are now as the 20-something-year-old female sitting here with me right now? Is your relationship good? Is your relationship bad? Because I can tell you that with me, it's a constant struggle. I think people often think that if you're a psychologist, things are, you got your thing, it's all in a bag. Because the fact that I can take on another person's experiences, you would assume that I am not going through things myself. 2016 was hard. I think a lot of us are like 2016. Because I think every time when I think about my greatest difficulty when it comes to the psychological space, even though in that year I was going into my master's, so I'd already gone through my undergrad, I'd already gone through my first year of postgrad, but 2016, when life things happened, that's when my relationship with psych was on some, okay, it's not as detached as I thought. I remember when I was going into my internship the year after, I went into this thing like, psychology is my job. It's got nothing to do with my personal. I feel like my personal is nicely touched together. I can separate the two. And I had a rude awakening where my supervisor was saying to me that you're trying to separate two things that exist within one entity. Stop that. Because there will be a conflict at some point. And that's usually where a breakdown comes in. There's a conflict where things, the way it is in which you imagine things to take place and how it is they're actually taking place in reality, don't match up. And the inability to kind of now manage those things and figure out how to get past the image and the reality is what causes a lot of people to think and feel out of control. And that's what I was going through. And I think even to this day, it's those things that I keep thinking about, okay, so since I can't control it, although I really wish I could, how do I, as you said, manage what I can control, which is my reaction, and try and move past it? And 2016 was, I think, was it 2016 or early 2017 was the first time I went into therapy. And once again, my understanding of the intertwinedness of who I am and what it is I do kind of came closer into recognition for me that if I try and push against it, it's going to push back as well. And I don't know if I will, come up tops. But thankfully I'm here, and I think I'm kind of managing it a little bit. But again, it's because I had to put myself in that space of, you're not perfect. You never have been, and baby girl, you never are going to be. Recognize it as what it is, and make a choice. Are you going to do something about it, or are you going to, let it swallow you? So I think my relationship with psychology now is one of great respect. Because of the different factors that it's hit in my life. from 2016, 3 years later now to 2019. And what about you guys?
I think I liked that point you mentioned about when you said you tried to separate your personal life to your job as a psychologist. And I think my own psychologist mentioned the very same thing.
Okay.
But for me, it was more like I was having difficulty accepting the fact that I was a mom.
Oh, wow.
So I was trying to separate my life as a mom and my life as a working professional. But as soon as I started accepting it, and that happened because I was going to therapy, the two lives were able to basically combine, and now I just love being a mom. So for me, because being a mom is so important, I see the impact that psychology had. And if it was not for my psychologist and my actually making the effort to go to my sessions and work through these issues, then I don't think my relationship with my daughter would be as strong as it is right now at the present. So I have major respect for psychology.
There's comfort in knowing that this person is from the outside and does not necessarily judge you based on your past.
Exactly.
Because if you have insight in who I am, the mistakes I've made, the bad choices I've come to, or the things that I'm thinking, the way my family is great or really, really sucks, the pressures, I come in as the professional that I am, and you are a clean slate. And there's something so great about creating a picture for yourself that is honest and true and being able to build upon that. I think that's what also a psychologist should be trying to do for you more than anything. Take the slate and from where we are right now, let's try and move forward. Of course, recognize what it is that has come from the past, but we're not pinpointing and holding you down based on that. The outside perspective it's refreshing.
That objectiveness, because ultimately at the end of the day, they don't know the nitty-gritties.
Yeah.
So they're looking at it from, okay, these are the facts that you've pointed out to me, and this is how you can help yourself. So it's that objective point of view, and I think that's what makes the biggest difference.
Do you think that's probably why also people are so are ambivalent about it? Because sometimes you know that the facts will also point directly at the wrongs, the faults that you have done.
Of course.
Because it's like speaking to a child. Children have no filter.
They will tell you the truth as it is.
Most probably because they saw it from you. If you say a bad word, a child is not just going to be on some no. A child, they saw you at some point or heard you at some point. It's literally like a mirror. And I often say that to my clients, like, anything you say, I am literally just repeating what it is you said to me out loud.
Yes.
I can't be on here and say, I was sitting with you yesterday and this is what I know. What you give me is what it is you have said, and I'm just giving it to you back. And sometimes that reflection is often reflecting of yourself is a hard thing to look at. It's a hard thing to even accept. And that's why a lot of people run away.
Yes, all the time, because it's that maybe I'm in the wrong, and a lot of times you don't want to admit that you are in the wrong.
Yeah.
You don't want to admit that, okay, I could have done this differently, okay, maybe I should try this. That giving it back to you, it's hard, and a lot of times we can't accept our truth.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot for you to get to a point where you can accept your truth and be like, you know, okay, now I messed up here, let me own it.
The fact that I can point out where I'm wrong and tell him, you know, and the fact that I can actually pinpoint my triggers and where it's coming from, you know, just working through it is what I need to be doing. So, because being self-aware, it's not easy, you know. There are some habits that we have that we may not necessarily like, but we continue doing them unconsciously.
Yes.
And to have someone else point that out to you is very difficult.
Yeah. It's so intrusive sometimes. Like, how dare you? How dare you?
Yeah.
I mean, something we learned, you know, in social work, and it was very interesting. It was self-introspection.
Yeah.
And like, you know, when someone says that, it's like, you had to
Reflect
upon yourself. And sometimes you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
But that was one big thing that, you know, I learned in social work was self-introspection. And a lot of times you don't want to do it. And it hurts sometimes when you do it. But it's such an important thing to do.
How did it impact your relationship with psychology?
Phew. Wow. Yeah.
It's like love-hate, I think.
It was a big love-hate relationship where sometimes I just didn't want to do it, and I was like, no. I mean, you go into supervision or you go into therapy, and it's like, no, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to do it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you know, once you do it, it's sort of like a breakthrough. It's not always, but when you get that breakthrough, you're like, oh, okay, maybe I should have reflected sooner.
Okay.
This and this possibly couldn't have happened. You know, I could have prevented this, or okay, I've learned from this. So it's a love-hate relationship, but it's also learning. You're always learning.
Going back to just the people often run away from it. Why do you think we're so against the introspective aspect of it, the work process of psychology? Why do people run away from it? Do you think?
That's an interesting question.
Or maybe why did you, as a person, when you're thinking about, okay, so now I'm struggling with whatever it is I'm struggling with, why had you not, in that moment in time, just gone and decided to actually get the assistance?
Because, I mean, for me, I thought that by me getting help is a sign of weakness. I definitely thought that. And that it was something shameful.
Yes.
If anything, that was detrimental to my health. That just aggravated the situation. I grew resentful to everyone around me until breaking point, and that's when it was like, it's an emergency now. I'm in critical condition. I am dysfunctional. I cannot, continue.
Yeah. It validates a lot of the things that you yourself might have known, but were too scared to acknowledge. And as you said, mainly because of the stigma that comes with it. It's, you end up thinking to yourself, I'm clearly not doing this human thing right.
Yeah.
Like, the people in and around me, my peers, are not going. And chances are they are in secret. But like, when you have conversations, my peers aren't going. If they're not going, and I am, what is wrong with me? Because it's a load, I think, to carry.
Fear of judgment also, because that judgment it's not no small thing, it's that, again, going back to, I'm not doing this right, I'm not doing this life thing right, and people are going to judge me, and a lot of times people do judge, meanwhile person's going through something of their own on their side, but it's a human flaw, I guess. Judgment is a human flaw that we have. So as you're thinking about that now, do we feel like psychology has a place in our society, taking it back to being the 20-something-year-old here in South Africa, 2019, with just a lot of the heartaches that are happening when we think about gender-based violence right now, when we think about the things that we as women have to deal with on a daily basis, just for the fact that I have breasts and ass. Is it necessary? Is it worthwhile? And also just struggles within the corporate space and just the workspace as well, where we aren't equal. And because of that, the pressure is so much higher for us in many ways in order to meet that same level as our peers. That means working later hours, having to juggle being a parent and also being a career woman. Where does psychology fit? Does it have value right now where we are?
I think it has great value. If anything, I feel that it's going to have a bigger part to play in our country as time goes on, as people become more knowledgeable about the profession, and people start realizing that, I think I do need help, and then they feel comfortable actually seeking that help. We live in a very different time, especially as young black professionals or males or females. It's a very different time, different from our parents, our grandparents. We've got a lot more pressures that we have to deal with. And I think psychology as a profession would definitely help alleviate some of the stresses and pressures that we have to deal with. Just knowing that there is a place where I can get that help. I definitely feel like I'm at a better place in my life right now because of it. You know, I can handle my emotions, my thoughts. I can differentiate between what's rational and what's irrational.
Okay.
And I can live my life. You know, I'm not perfect. There are days where I do go into an episode. And the important things that I realize that, okay, I'm going into a depressive episode. Okay, I need to change X, Y, and Z.
It's giving you avenues by the sounds of things.
Yeah, definitely.
Options.
Yes.
I like that.
And it's also the I'd like what you say, kids, in terms of teaching you where, okay, this is my trigger. I need to remove myself from this space. You know, a lot of the times, young professionals, you don't realize it. You don't realize that, okay, you know what, this assignment that I've been given, yes, I've been given it, but no, I actually can't do it. You don't realize your trigger early on. You don't realize that you need to just remove yourself. And if it's a matter of having a chat to your boss, having a chat to, you know, a colleague, and if we're in a space where we all understand in terms of, okay, we all go through things, and okay, this is a trigger for you as my colleague. Okay, we work together. Okay, Vara, can you take this on? And I'll take on something of yours. So, you know, that working together to sort of help each other manage.
By taking on the load.
Yeah.
I'm hearing you say right now that for you, or maybe your understanding is that the place that it should play right now is within the workspace more than anything.
Yeah.
That's what
I
fits.
see, yeah. So, you know, there's the space that I'm currently in.
Okay.
That's what I see on the daily in terms of, it's just a matter of we need to just be able to work together. Know that there is a place that you could turn to when things are just, not even when things are bad, even when things are good.
Yeah.
You should be able to just be like, you know, I just need to have a chat with someone. Just make sure that, you know, I'm still on the right track. Am I okay? Am I managing? Am I coping? Because sometimes you might feel like you're managing and you're coping.
But you're not.
The smallest thing can, you know, hit it off.
But also in that, when things are good, I think it's also important to go to that person, to that therapist, and figure out why are things good so I can maintain what's good.
Yes.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because I recently went back to my therapist. Things were good for months. It was almost a year since I had last gone for my session, and I was feeling so great. And I think the mistake I probably made was not going back when things were still fine to figure out, okay,
what am I doing right?
Yeah, what am I doing right? Can I continue?
Yes.
You know, I had to go back when I felt like, okay, I think things are getting too much now, and then you just go back and work through it again.
That's another fault, I think, of just human behavior and just being a strong. Yes, we are independent. We are women who, and I know this because I know the both of you. We are all women who have our own convictions, and we know what it is we can do and how far we can push ourselves. So I think being in those moments of recognizing that things are great and they are flowing has us thinking that we can maintain that long term, because I've learned the tricks. I don't need you to kind of help me, you know, just fine tune them. You know, when you go and you study, you can't take your 2015 certificate and think it's going to sustain you into 2035. No, that's 20 odd years that have gone past. Things have changed, life has changed, and your scenarios and the situations that you've been finding yourself in within whatever space are going to change. That's the same thing with your psyche. You get comfortable and it becomes very manageable, but something somewhere will come with a spanner, and now it's kind of, you know, making a little bit, and you need to kind of go back and be on okay, so this was working. It still feels like it's okay, but I just want to just touch it up, and that's exactly what therapy should be. You know, when we think about people who go into couples therapy or premarital therapy, it's not okay, so we're trying to prevent or trying to fix something that doesn't exist. It's let's continue to keep the communication lines open and know how to do that successfully for each other to avoid divorce court, to avoid coming back here when things have completely shattered beyond, you know, any repairable, you know, are irreparable. So before things become irreparable. I think when you're in the good, figure out how to maintain the good so you know how to so it can be longer term. I mean, that sounds like a good thing to me. It's Sounds like a life that I want to live
Yeah.
personally.
Because that is the biggest mistake that we as people make is I went to therapy, things got fixed, okay, I'm good, don't need it anymore, and go along. Bye. Meanwhile, it's a matter of, it's a relationship. You have to maintain it. You have to maintain it. Communicate. You need to, it's an ongoing thing. You keep going and keep going and keep going.
This thing called life. It never gets any easier, but I think what we spoke about today was just recognizing that when things are not okay in a particular time, they will get to be okay at some point. And I think you're president of that more than anything. You're a living, true example of that. That life will get hard. And the severity of its hardness is not a competition. I think that's what a lot of us sometimes might think, that because you could handle it, I can handle it. Resilience is a funny thing. Resilience is built in varying scenarios and situations. So how dare you think that your resilience can withstand you in my space? Let's not be ignorant about it in that way. It's not that simple. It's not that. It's not a plaything. It's not a plaything. And I think also the thing that's annoying about resilience is the fact that you can't just go to a course, or you can't just be in a space and think that you will acquire resilience. It shows up in ways, in a very unconscious way, that either makes you or breaks you. So that's the beauty of psychology. I think when your resilience is no longer withstanding the situation that you're in, we try and build another fort, another scaffolding to kind of help you get back to where it is you were. Because crumbling is part of life. I think that's also another point that psychology has taught me, that growth is uncomfortable and never asked for, but it's necessary in every aspect. No.
It ain't pretty.
And if it wasn't all wanted,
Yes.
it wouldn't be worth it, I think. The hardest things definitely do come to knock you in the face, but based on how it is you recognize it and take hold of it, there's a lot of lessons that you can definitely pick up from it.
Definitely.
Yeah. But I think thank you so much, ladies. This will be, I think, the end of our first session of introducing guests. Thank you so much for joining the three of us. As always, please come back next month for another video, another conversation. But before you leave, make a comment down below. What are your experiences with psychology? What is your relationship? Do you have one? Do you agree with the points that we've made? Does it have a place in the 21st century South African youth's lifestyle? What are your experiences? Thank you for watching, and see you guys next month. Bye.
Bye.
And cut!